Everybody, Shane Severson here, Legacy Realty, coming to you with our June market update. And I've got a lot of information, so I'm not going to chit-chat a whole lot. I'm just going to jump right in. I am going to title this market update, Keeping Perspective. But before I get to that, I always mention some of the stats and changes and so forth, so I'm going to start with that. Let's start with average sold price, like we talk about every month. If you look at June in 2018, our average sold price of a home was $492,094. In June of 19, our average sold price is $501,550. So we're up 2%. Still probably, right where we've been talking and right around those numbers. So we're still increasing about the same as what we thought. Our days on market is a big determining factor compared to a lot of the other things. In 2018 in June, we were at 31 days on the market to sell a house. We are currently in 2019 at 32. So we've gone up 1 day. So it has taken an extra day to sell homes. We're seeing that. And every month it is increasing by a little bit. The big number that we've been tracking and we watch every month, this is what will determine inventory, or if we're in a buyer's market, seller's market, going up, all of those things, is our inventory, how many months it takes to sell out our inventory. And we are, last year we were at 5 weeks inventory, and we currently in 2019, we are at 7 weeks inventory. So that's a big jump. We jumped almost 50% in the last year. Now that is huge numbers with that. So we'll keep watching those numbers and see what happens there. It will continue to go up. We're going to talk about that just a little bit. Here's the deal that I really want to hit on. When talking to buyers, sellers, you probably are one or thinking to be one. Many buyers and sellers, they look over a trend of maybe a year, maybe 5 years. They look at the market, they look at these trends, and they say, okay, is this a good time to buy? Is this a good time to sell? And they determine on those things. Now, 2 things that I want to encourage us on: keeping perspective. Number 1, I think it's so important to keep perspective on the big picture. Don't look at some of these numbers that your coworkers are talking about, or maybe just even the single statistics that I talk about. Keeping bigger perspective, and that's why it's important to talk to a professional at the time that you're even thinking about doing something. So let's look at all things considered. If you were a buyer today, let's look at a buyer today. Prices are going up. And many people think, okay, it's not a great time to buy. We're not at that point yet. It hasn't leveled out. I'm going to wait. And many buyers are on the sideline and waiting for something to change. Here's the thing. I think that is a very big mistake, depending on your situation, obviously, but I think that is a big mistake. Now, here is why. Here's one of the reasons why. If you were looking to buy in 2018 compared to 2019, let's compare that. A house, let's just say an average home, has gone up 10 to maybe $20,000. So you would think, wow, I should have bought in 2018. And you're kind of that hindsight buyer looking back. Here's what I would tell you. Interest rates today are lower than they've been in the last 2 years. It's crazy. Our interest rates right now are in the high 3s, maybe 4, depending on some of your situations. That means that a house that's $20,000 higher today could be upwards to $100 or more a month cheaper today than it was in 2018. Are those rates going to stay there? I think rates will stay low, but probably not that low. So what does that tell you as a buyer? You should be buying right now. That's something to keep in mind. So it's a great time to buy, and we're going to get back to that in just a second. Second thing I want to talk about with keeping perspective, and that is, it's amazing when you're in the business for a while. So I've been in the business for 20 years, and I've seen some ups and I've seen some downs. Markets do change. But what I think is so important is taking a longer period of time to track markets. And it's very important to look at a longer perspective if you're going to buy or if you're going to sell, to determine if it's the right market or the right time. Give you a great example. I've been in the business 20 years. I can look at some of those numbers, but I can also look back at the statistics, which we look at quite often. Since the very early 70s, we've tracked since. That's almost 50 years that we track. So let's look at buyers first of all, and let's look at those interest rates that we were talking about. When I got in the business 20 years ago, my interest rates that I was selling, that I took on my own home, most of us, interest rates were 8%, 9%. I even sold people with bad credit and so forth upwards to 12%. Some of you bought homes with interest rates higher than 12%. I challenge you to go talk to anybody that bought a home 20 years ago and tell them that you could lock in an interest rate, and even at 4% today, if you were buying investment properties, rentals, and you told somebody that you could lock in at a 5% for a 30-year loan and lower for a 15-year loan, they would say, you are crazy. Buy. Now's the time to buy. And so even though some of us looking in the last year, we think, interest rates have dropped a little bit. Guys, these rates haven't dropped a little bit. These rates are half to a third of what our averages have been. Now is a great time to invest in Denver real estate. Don't be fooled with just looking at short-term numbers. One of the concerns buyers may have is that prices could drop. Oh my gosh, what if we are hitting a peak, and what if the prices do drop? And maybe people are nervous. That's why they're sitting on the market. I want to challenge you. If you look at the statistics over almost 50 years, since like 1970, 72 or so forth, maybe you don't know this, but in 50 years, prices in Denver have only gone down. Longer than I've been alive, 4 years, a total of 4 years. Now, in those 4 years, a couple of those years were slight drops, maybe 1,000, 2,000. And so what are the chances that our prices in Denver are going to drop? The odds are next to nothing. They're not going to drop. They're going to continue to climb, and that tells us something. Here's a great question that I've been asked by experts all the time. Think about this. If you bought, worst case, you buy in a market that does drop. Let's say you bought in this last time when the market collapsed. We say collapsed around us. Let's say you did buy at the peak right as it dropped. Here's a question for you. How long did it take you before you were back to even and making money? Answer: about 3 years. So if you're going to live in a home more than 3 years and you buy in the absolute worst time, by the time you sell, you're way on the increase and you made a ton of money anyway. The chances of losing in Denver is very, very slim, even if it happens to be that way crazy odds of it dropping. It's not going to drop most likely, but if it does and you hold it for a few years, it climbs right back up. Lastly, I want to look at sellers, things to consider as a seller. And one of the things I want to point out is our days on market. A lot of sellers right now are extremely nervous. Oh my gosh, Shane, days on market, it's taking longer to sell. Buyers are getting a little more, they're pushy a little bit more, they're getting more from me, and sellers are getting a little nervous right now when their house sits a little bit. Since the early 70s, our average days on market, get this, we're at 33, 32 and going up. The average days on market in almost 50 years is 70 days on the market. 70. That means it's taken half the time today than our average. That is crazy. Houses are flying off the market like we haven't experienced in a long time. But if you look over the last 5 years, you're getting a very bad perspective. What does that mean for sellers? If you want to sell, we are pretty close to the major increase at the end of that. They are tapering off. And so if you're a seller wanting to get the most for your money, now's the time. Sell. Our days on market are going to continue to climb. Buyers will continue to beat sellers up. And so that's great news for buyers and sellers. I'm telling you, if you're trying to guess the peak, if you own a couple rental properties and you're trying to guess when to transfer that money into a new market, do it now, because our days on market are great. Hope that helps. I hope that information benefits you. If it does, please like the video, please comment, and please share this video so others can get the same information and they can be benefited as well. God bless you. Hope you're doing great, and we will talk to you real soon.